Hello, everybody. This is a new education show. And this is Dean Val with Dean Kevin and Jeremy. And creation is a funny place here. We can create anything we want. So why are we creating the demise of the planet? Doesn't make sense. But it makes sense to educate people to see what they're agreeing to. And one of these things, again, is that they're agreeing to like destroying the planet. That just is not making sense. So some of the things we do is to go over what can be done to create a new position in this creation simulator that we're in. One of the things we've been talking about here is the indigenous peoples. Kevin has something today, and I'm going to read some more of Luther Standing Bear. My Indian childhood, and he talks about the Lakota Sioux and how they raised their kids. And again, it's a way to see different viewpoint about how we can manage ourselves here in creation, because it's a tough place and it takes all of us to support each other to make things, make more sense of things here. Why are we destroying the planet? It doesn't make sense. If you really go back and look at it, the history of things and how things have progressed, it's not looking good the way it's moving toward its demise. So again, here's a viewpoint that might be beneficial for everybody to see how we can live. And I'm not advocating this lifestyle, but here are people that are working and supporting the natural environment that supports them. The trapping and catching of game was also one of the first lessons learned by the Indian boy. Before we were old enough to use a bow and arrow, we learned to kill small animals such as rabbits, squirrels, and quail, or other birds by throwing stones. We killed these small animals for food and not for sport. We were told by our parents not to kill animals or birds, then leave them lying on the ground. For practice and also because we enjoyed it, we would select a small bush or shrub, imagine there was game in it, then throw and throw until we became expert and could hit almost anything we wished to. Even to this day, I'm good at throwing stones and can hit my mark. I remember when my brother got a new shotgun and how anxious he was to show me how well he could use it. He asked me to go with him to look for ducks. When we got to the creek, there was our duck. My brother, eager to get the duck, crept closer and closer. I saw that the duck was getting ready to fly. And though I was standing far back from my brother, I picked up a stone and throwing it over his head, got the duck. He plainly showed his disappointment in not getting a chance to show me how his gun worked. Yet we were lucky to get our duck. I was the one, to be sure, who laughed first. And though my brother could not help being a little disappointed, he laughed with me. While still too small to use bows and arrows or guns, we not only threw stones by hand, we had throwing games in which we became expert marksmen. We would select a pliant willow stick, flatten it a little at one end, leave the other end round for a handle. Having a number of stones of suitable size close at hand, we would place one on the flat end of the stick and bending it back with a right hand, throw it with a considerable force. With practice, we would hit anything at which we aimed, and used as a weapon, this stick would kill rabbits, squirrels, or prairie chickens, all of which were excellent food when cooked. We even learned to flip gravel with the forefinger of each hand in such a way that they would strike with a sting like shot. We boys would line up and play at battle, shooting these pebbles back and forth at one another, never missing our mark. When it came time to take up the bow and arrow, a very real and serious training began for the boy. The making of both the bow and arrow required skill and knowledge. There is a long history connected with the first use of the bow and the influence it has had on man. Some writers who realize the importance of how the bow have written entire books on it. The man who made the first bow was a real inventor and gave to the world a weapon that was to live for centuries of time and prove of use to millions of people. In the use of the bow, we had to become very skillful, for in my days of boyhood, it was the means of getting all our food, mainly the buffalo. It was only took a skillful man, but a brave one, to face a herd of buffalo with nothing but a trusty bow and a quiver full of arrows. Also, we had to remember that our enemies were skillful men with the bow and arrow. I think you can see what this weapon meant to us and the great dependence we put in it. It was the one weapon that preserved us from starvation or defeat. So it would have been unpardonable for a Sioux boy to grow up without knowledge of this useful article. Without it, he could not face life. Okay, so here we have these Indians living in the Dakotas, up northern states of the United States, and they make do with what they have. They're not destroying the environment. They're using the environment to make their weapons, to gather food, hunt for food. They're not destroying their water. They're not destroying, they take only what they need with the food, and they use all of the animal for different things: clothing, tools, foods. They don't waste any of it. So there's no garbage, basically. They recycle everything, you could say. They pretty much leave things as they were. And it's a lifestyle that makes sense. So here comes the white men from Europe, and with their funny ideas about how to progress and how to control people, and they start messing things up. So somewhere along the line, things got funny, and here we are now to this day. So we're here to help people to see what if they're willing to step up and do something to make sense of our environment here on this planet before we destroy it. So this is part of this show, is just to help people gather new viewpoints or other viewpoints so they can see it from different angles and maybe make better decisions for themselves. Any comments on this, what I just read, or the Lakota Sioux, or Luther's Standing Bear?
Yeah, I had a quick comment, because through that I was trying to compare it to the is and see sort of that self-sufficiency and how that relates to the isness, life is. And one thing I noticed was that he said that the bow was a very useful tool for him, and how he learned these skills from a young age, and etc. So that kind of reminded me of how when you become more aware, you find out through your awareness that you can actually traverse through creation a little easier. It actually starts to become fun rather than drudgery. So you get these, in a sense, you get these tools that will help you on your journey. So I thought that was kind of cool to make that connection.
Thank you. And hi, Ryan, welcome. I just read from Luther's Standing Bear, and
so Ryan, the little boy, or the man who wrote this book, was a little boy. He talks about the Sioux people, the Native Americans, and how from a very young age they learned to be self-sufficient. They would learn to use their tools properly. etc. They used to learn stones to feed themselves, to catch small game and stuff like that. And I kind of related that to this this journey that we all chose, in that you have to learn those self-sufficiency skills, not necessarily like that, but, you know, in a sense, sort of the same idea. And especially these tools that you get when you become more aware, you can actually utilize them as a benefit in creation and to sort of make your way around a little bit smoother.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a brief point on what you just read as well, Val, that, I mean, Duane did say in regards to the indigenous people that they may not have recognised these, but it was very apparent by their actions that they were more directly connected with their real awareness more so. It was obviously a cleaner connection without all the funny literal ideas of the, and that is, of course, the real awareness that animates the personal self in creation, and for the purpose that creation actually serves, that being to recognise the true reality through the comparisons it provides. And the indigenous peoples, like animals and the children, it's rather apparent that they do have this connection, because what they do is what makes sense with the all-natural environment in support of it, which is, and the all-natural environment is this isness, which supports us through all of creation. And even without the real awareness connection, perhaps, it's very apparent that individuals who do support the all-natural environment indicates that intuitively they know how to make sense in regards to survival and not to destroy the environment they're in. And of course, the intuitive part is that which is closest to the real awareness. Although the intuitive part of the ethereal body is still creational, it is still the closest part to the real awareness that we are. And so we'll receive impressions from it.
Yeah, it's like a huge distraction what we have here with technology and all. And the indigenous people lived simply, and they didn't have all this input from the outside to, you know, their attention was on survival. And then if they wanted to get into the real side, and like the shamans and some of the people that were able to see more of what was going on in creation, they could, but they had more of a focus. Whereas I know, especially some of my friends and people that I know, they're so distracted with, well, making a living, and just, even if they have money, they get into all these things that they think are important, where it just supports the controllers and what they're promoting and marketing. So it's the focus. They don't have any more focus. Everything is a distraction these days. Go ahead, Kevin, if you have any.
The following information was sourced from the National Centre for Collaboration in Indigenous Education. The integration of Indigenous education and knowledge into homeschooling from an Indigenous lens by Dr. Herman Mitchell. And I quote, "Homeschooling has a strong community and family orientation with links to the lands we occupy. Students receive intensive one-on-one learning, and there is a strong focus on the environment. It's important to understand that what may work for one child may not work for another. Homeschooling requires a lot of work and patience. It requires routine, structure, and rigor. There is also a lot of freedom. It's not about filling the head of your child with information. Elders say all children come into this world with inherent knowledge and wisdom. Parents know the strengths of their own children and what direction that they are inclined to take in life. Learning is a lifelong activity. Elders say We can never learn everything there is to know in one lifetime. Homeschooling is about relevance, what's important in everyday life. Children need to know why they are learning about certain things. We live in a virtual world with access to thousands of materials and resources. Gone are the days when memorization and regurgitation of facts was the only way to teach and learn. Diversity and enrichment of learning experiences is the key. We want children to think on their own and become independent. First Nations and Inuit people come from diverse environments, cultures, and communities. There are also commonalities that thread through all cultures, regardless of race. The value of respect is the guiding principle we use to teach our youth. We want to prepare them to walk through multiple worlds in pride. Despite the diversity of the First Nations and Inuits people, all people share a strong connection to the land. There is a shared world view. Indigenous people see the world in an interconnected way. Humans are interdependent with the rest of creation. We want our children to think in a holistic way, which is the foundation of teaching and learning from an indigenous lens. We have a shared vision of self-determination. We all want our children to be able to take care of themselves as they grow older. Homeschooling isn't new for Indigenous peoples. We have done this since the beginning of time. In traditional times, it was our extended family members that were our teachers, as they had diverse knowledge and skill sets. We do certain things at certain times of the year. The carriers of traditional knowledge are the elders, the hunters, the trappers, the fisherers, and the gatherers of medicine. Our seasonal cycle is the framework we use to develop teaching and learning of activities. At the forefront of Indigenous education is the importance of teaching the essence of our oneness with the lands, the lakes, the rivers, and the oceans within their respective territories. Elders say all humans must bond with the earth and all of its facets. There are natural laws rooted in the land. There are also spiritual laws that guide how we think, how we behave, and how we relate to one another. We have counting systems in our languages. Numbers do tell a story. Math can be taught through beading, sewing, cooking, carpentry, and preparing for periods of isolation in camps. We teach students how to read the lands and waterways. Storytelling is one of the main ways of passing on knowledge. Share stories and allow the children to make links to the world around them. Teach them deep thinking skills. There's a time and a place for everything. There's a time to sit with the children and a time where they must be alone. Engage in activities for mental, spiritual, for emotional and physical development. Learning isn't just about mental development. Elders say the longest journey we will ever make is to connect our heart and mind. Teach children to express themselves in multiple ways through writing, stories, dance, drumming, music, and even puppetry. Indigenous peoples lived a very physical, active lifestyle, involved in sport, so they can connect with their peers. They also then learn about teamwork and rules by playing sports with others. There are traditional sports that are connected with the indigenous cultures and languages. Give consistent praise to children, even for the smallest of achievements. Reinforcing human relationship skills is important. Teach the children respectful ways of communicating with others. Teach them about respect and allow them to demonstrate respect for themselves, for others, and in the natural world through projects. Teach them that every animal, every insect, every tree and plant has a purpose. Every being has responsibilities. And every human being is social, unique, and beautiful. Teach them traditional values of sharing, giving, of caring, humility, and truth. Teach them compassion by helping others less fortunate. Harvest natural foods and medicines and share them with the elders in the community. Demonstrate passion in your teachings. Make learning fun. Humor is a good way of teaching. Allow children to make mistakes and to learn from them. Let them know that their voices and perspectives count. Engage in collective decision-making to solve problems. As a parent, allow yourself to learn along with your children. Stories allow students to think, reflect, and make links with life. Storytelling can be used to learn of indigenous history. Our original stories have hidden teachings and messages. Have students dig deep for the underlying meanings and how these stories and lessons apply to current life experiences. Hands-on learning is very important. Use the see and do approach. Have the children observe how to prepare fish, animals, etc. until they are ready to do it on their own. Show them how to handle animals and plants that have been harvested. Assist the children to become capable at envisioning, planning, building, and sharing. Engage in projects that benefit the collective, the family, the community. Teach them that they can make a difference in the lives of others. Use seasonal activities. Rewarding outdoor experiences coupled with learning. Medicine walks are where students learn to identify, learn to harvest, store, and use plants for health and wellness. Allow the children to learn how to live a sustainable lifestyle, to live off the land, to identify and harvest foods and edible plants, teach them wilderness survival skills, teach children why the residential schools were set up and the impacts of these institutions in the lives of First Nations and Inuit people, network with other parents who are homeschooling and share ideas of best practices, listen to one another, bounce off each other your frustrations and confidence. It's not easy being a parent and a teacher at the same time. Engage in joint projects and utilize the technology to connect with each other more easily.
What caught my attention, he said walk through the multiple worlds, which is say, oh, that could mean the real side too, learn how to walk through the real side worlds as well as the physical. There's so much here. I think a lot of times, I know when I'm in the wilderness, isolation, or you could say when you're alone, there's a lot of times when you have an alone time. So this is good. They maybe, from what my understanding, they use math, or you could go over things in your head, or you could observe things. I know the Indians had this called a sit space, where they'd go out and just sit on the mountain or sit someplace in the forest and just observe for hours, just see the events of nature passing by, how the sun moved, how the animals moved through the forest. They would observe and just sit for hours and reflect and do the observation. And we've lost that. We're in our technological world. We don't have that kind of space where we observe, especially nature. So this is good, the isolation part, because there's a lot of times when you're alone, you have, or in this world, you're bored, have nothing to do. But in nature, there's always so much going on, and they learn how to take advantage of that time. Storytelling, that's cool. That's like link it to the environment and link it to the is, or this reality that just is. And the indigenous people, yeah, they were closer. They didn't have the is necessarily, but they were in a better position to recognize it. And some of the elders or the people that had knowledge of this, I'm sure they probably had a time of it too, like we have a time sharing it with others. The elders in the tribe probably had the same situation where people were so, fulfilled and satisfied in a way that they didn't want to see more than the environment. They didn't want to go beyond that, which is fine. But in the other respect, they didn't have this distraction that we do. So some of them maybe did come upon the is accidentally, or with their decision to do so, and went on. There's so much to this. It's really good source, Kevin. You could share that maybe in the chat or something, the link. He described it well, and you read it well. So, yeah, you covered everything. How hard it is for a parent to do homeschooling and be the teacher. So it takes the community really to get involved, and the elders carry on the knowledge and pass it forward. And each elder has their own skill set. It's seasonal, so we've lost with their electricity. We can spend hours at night with our lighting, whereas they went to bed when the sun went to bed, pretty much. So they were in tune with nature and the cycles of nature. So this is also something that we've disconnected ourselves from nature. Yeah, just so much. Go ahead, Jeremy or Brian, if you have anything, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that their way of living is very refined and very simple, as opposed to our world is, our social environment nowadays is pretty complicated. So I imagine the way they related to their environment was a much more straightforward, rather than as today I see with a lot of experiences that I hear and different things, it's very roundabout and very complex because the social consciousness just keeps expanding. So it just gets more complicated than it really needs to be.
Duane is really focused on the children, and the children are so special and they're so innocent and pure, and they don't have all that stuff in their new brain added on, and their potential is huge. So if they're educated right or led in the right direction, they have huge potential to make a big impact on this world. So down here in Baja, we want to get the children, maybe have the mothers come, support the mothers, the single mothers especially. There's a lot of single mothers here struggling with making an income and what to do with their child. I know the bus I take sometimes here to La Mission from where I live, the bus driver has his family drive along with him. The kids and the wives, they're involved with as a family. The migrants or the workers in the fields, they usually it's a family thing. The kids even work, and the wives and the husband all work in the fields. So it's already here in these kind of communities, but we provide the next step where if they have the means of survival, they don't have to struggle with making the money for food and shelter and clothing, then they can go on to become more aware. In a way, that's a distraction too. You have to focus on making money. So in our university here, which we're planning to develop, we have a building even ready. It's in a little bit south of a little small town called Primotopia. It's 26 acres. It's Persian sand. I don't know if, I think I mentioned this before. They call it, it's a protected area. The sand is supposed to be special, different than other sand in the beach area. But we're not going to be building a lot of buildings. The building's already there, but we're going to develop, maybe bring in some more trees and develop the lake. It has its own lake, and it has a river next to it, draining into the ocean. Mostly, there's some palm trees, some scrubby bushes, and a lot of birds around. It's like an estuary almost, the river. The building is not quite finished yet. It's like half, the building is up, but the inside has not been finished. But it's a huge, tall building where we can have aquaculture. We can have plants inside the building. We can grow things inside. It's so tall. The ceiling is like huge. I mean, I don't know how tall it is, but it's, I don't know why they built it like that, but it's got long, big vertical space you can use for something. So this will be our physical university as we see it once funding comes in. And then we can have the mothers come and they can be part of they can even work there and get income and work with their kids. They can see what their kids are learning, they don't have to send them to some school and they don't know what's going on, but they can be involved in the learning process. They can learn, the kids can learn, and everybody will be okay. We want everybody to be okay. So, Ryan, do you have any comments from what all's been said here?
I want to say about the observer you said about it. few days ago, I released something about the observer and seeing. When I was trying seeing a NUUU and focus, suddenly I recognized this system. We live in it, and the person owner and made this system wants the people and not see clearly and see a real side. Just see three step in front them. When I released this idea and is about the uh, confused mining in my hands, suddenly I connect the universe and environmental and see environmental all of the universe and can speak with them with not any technology, with not any communication system, just with seeing and connection in the mind, and we can speak with the other nation and natural in the other planets.
So you're talking about like telepathy?
Yes,
Which can be developed in each of us. Yes, it's there's so much potential we have in these bodies. The bodies are vulnerable, but there's so much to us in our awareness. In the human body, we have access to the other four bodies too. So each body has this potential. It's not just, it's just understanding each body and how it works. And then each body has its own potential. Like the intuitive body, this etheric body has a lot it can do, to, in terms of helping the other bodies recognize and relate to this isness that we talk about, this reality that just is. I think we got a good start here with our school, our education, and what we're offering with the university, homeschool, which will cover all ages. It's basically how to educate people to let go of their restrictions so they can see more. Once they let go of those restrictions, automatically they'll be able to see. They don't have to be tied to ideas and emotions and controlling factors from without and from within. And it's a great journey to be on. There's nothing like it. It's the real journey. It's the real thing. So helping people let go of their restrictions. So thank you everybody for being here. Thanks for sharing. We'll see you next week. NUUU. Ryan?
NUUU.
Kevin? And Jeremy?
NUUU.